Kitco Mining special coverage of Xplor 2024 is brought to you by Radisson Mining Resources.
Welcome back to Kitco Mining's ongoing coverage of Xplor 2024 in Montreal. Joining me now is Robert Wares, President and CEO of Osisko Metals. Robert, welcome.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
So we have good energy here this year compared to last year, compared to probably previous years. A lot of the conversation's been centering on the precious metals. We've seen crazy run-ups in price.
Yeah, record gold price.
Yeah, record gold prices, silver taking off. But you're focused on copper, and it's interesting because a lot of the conversation we're having, a lot of the drivers on the silver side, copper is really in the middle of that, and this is the electrification, decarbonization conversation. Mm-hmm. So, wanted to kind of go over the broader market with you, and then we would get into a little bit more detail about Osisko Metals projects in particular.
Perfect.
So, I guess beginning with the demand side. Copper is critical to the green energy transition, probably inarguably the most critical metal.
It is the critical metal.
Right. So tell me a little bit about where you're seeing demand. Where's the growth, and what are the latest projections for the industry?
The growth is going to actually come mostly from increased demand from grid networks. If we're going to decarbonize the planet, of course, all that, whether it's transportation industry, energy generation, energy storage, it just requires copper, copper, copper. And the independent analysts all pretty much agree that demand or production has to double to meet demand by 2050, which quite frankly is almost an impossible task. Doubling global production, which is just under 30 million tons a year of copper metal, to up to 60 by 2050 is arguably virtually impossible. Unless, of course, there's a concerted effort. There are a lot of, certainly many tier 2 deposits are developed, a handful of tier 1s. There's jurisdictional risk, there's permitting issues in many countries, and also capital markets, not necessarily there yet. So all these factors are interfering with development of copper projects and hindering future production. So I agree that 2025 we're entering global deficit territory, and that is there to stay for at least 5 years. So that should translate into much healthier spot prices and futures prices, of course, but it's not going to make any difference. You still have to go through a permitting process, and it takes time. So I can't see really any significant global production increase for at least 5 years. And it's going to lead to a serious crunch. And I don't know how the Western economy or the global economy is going to deal with it, because it's never happened before, such a long-term deficit.
Right, and this is on the demand side. It's an interesting situation because you have the developed West, which has fully built infrastructure, but we're investing in the next generation of infrastructure. So we're investing in EVs, EV charging stations. We're investing in, obviously, the AI. The AI revolution is obviously lots of data centers, but all those data centers have to be connected. Some of those data center projects are looking at generating their own power, and then they feed back into the grid. So it's still kilometers of copper no matter what. So, but then there's also the electrification, in many cases for the first time, happening in the developed world. Yeah. In the developing world, I mean. So you have, obviously China's been driving that for a number of years. It looks like India could be the number one source of demand for electrification for decades to come. To what degree do you think these demand projections that we're seeing today are reflecting this? Because what we've seen in the case of China is that for example, that they had 2030 goals. They were met in 2024, so we're ahead of schedule. So, and this has happened a number of times where the demand projections are only being ramped up. They're only being revised upward. Yeah. So where do you think we are in terms of the demand picture? What's the potential upside? What's your sense of how accurate that is today versus this kind of massive looming demand that we're seeing?
Well, demand, obviously, this is crystal ball territory. Everybody's got their own projections. The banking system, the bank analysts tend to focus a lot on demand. We tend to focus mostly on supply. quite frankly, even if you take the most pessimistic demand projections, we're still in deficit territory. Given all the challenges that are required to put new deposits, significant deposits into production. So like it or not, I think global deficit is inevitable. And the only thing that's going to change it are things like in the US, for example, or executive orders out of Washington to put the idle US deposits into production, such as Resolution or Rosemont or even Pebble. These are world-class deposits that have been sitting in permitting quagmire now for over a decade, and that's what has to change. It's not the lack of known resources. The issue is far more related to the timeline now of permitting, coupled to jurisdictional risk. Look what happened in Cobre Panama, right? So nobody imagined you can lose a world-class mine, and yet it happened. So these are all factors that come into play, and these factors are complicating new production, which is urgently needed. And that's one of the reasons why we decided, well, we'll focus on own backyard.
Right, because you've got the domestic. That's right.
Exactly.
So, and then these, like you're saying in the U.S., these potential production is very, very important. But also the U.S. and Canada are very invested in stable mining jurisdictions where you can be confident that a deal remains a deal, and 10 years down the road you're where you're supposed to be. Even if the time frame for getting there is of course long, you can have certainty. So then tell us how Osisko Metals is fitting into this picture. We have what should be a supply crisis within a year or so. And we have increasing demand. Even like you're saying, even the more pessimistic or more realistic projections are showing a serious deficit. So how are you positioning yourselves?
Well, we positioned ourselves by when we started Osisko Metals. Obviously, the Osisko Group has been traditionally more focused on gold, still is. But in 2017, we decided to create a base metal branch. Started looking at base metal opportunities. We finally settled on the Point project, Northwest Territory, which is advancing well. It's in joint venture with Appian, and we're free carry essentially with a 35% residual interest once we get to FID. But we also spend a lot of time looking at copper opportunities, and I had the opportunity to work at Gaspé Copper actually back in the 90s. That's where I met my partner Jeff Hussey, who was mine geologist at the time. It was a long-lived Noranda operation. And it was in Glencore's hands. We looked at it twice, but with rising copper price and certainly some gambling on what's going to happen in copper, we decided this was a fantastic opportunity to develop this asset in one of the safest jurisdictions in the world. And it's going to I think we can keep developing it into a top-notch Tier 2 asset. It's not a Tier 1, but I'd rather have a Tier 2 asset in a safe jurisdiction that I know can be permitted in a reasonable timeline than a Tier 1 asset in a questionable jurisdiction with fuzzy optics, let's say, on the permitting timeline. I think it's a good bet, and that's what we're focused on.
All right. And so then looking ahead, what are some potential goals for that project and for Osisko Metals as a whole, looking at 2025?
Well, actually, before year end, we're working on a new resource model, a new geological model to an extent. I think it'll come out as very good news to the market. And then 2025, that's going to trigger a lot of drilling to prove it up. But I'm confident we can look forward to a significantly larger resource. And in a rising copper market, I'm also very optimistic on copper price next year. And timing will be great because we'll hit the wave. And I think copper prices will stay very healthy. I can easily see copper over $5. It's been stable over $4 now for a while. And I think we can look forward to $4 being the base support level for copper next year. And if copper can stay between $4 and $5 next year, it's just the beginning really of a long-term cycle, bull cycle. And investors should seriously look at investing in serious copper projects. So a lot of drilling. We'll carry on with the MRE we released. We're planning to issue a PEA in Q1. We might have to rethink that depending on the new MRE release. But be that as it may, our current resource, which is about 500 million tons at 0.35 copper equivalent, certainly will be a starter pit no matter how you cut it. And I think we'll finish the mine plan on that and start looking at project economics. But personally, I'm looking forward to a lot more drilling to increase the resource at Gaspé Copper.
All right. Well, it sounds like we know that this is a multi-decade build out that we're looking at on the infrastructure side, and copper is going to be in the middle of it and at the extremities.
Yeah.
So we'll need to keep in touch with you and see where we're at. Maybe halfway through 2025.
Yeah.
We'll see where the price is at, and we'll see where Osisko Metals is at as well.
Looking forward to a very, very exciting year, both from market point of view and our capacity to build on the resource.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Always a pleasure.
I'm Ernest Hoffman for Kitco Mining. Keep it here for more coverage from Xplor 2024 in Montreal.
Kitco Mining special coverage of Xplor 2024 is brought to you by Radisson Mining Resources.